Hey guys, Scar9 here, welcome back to my channel today, and in this video I want to do a little bit of a lore recap leading up to the Warmind DLC next week. Now in this DLC, it seems we are going to be introduced to two very important figures for the Hive. Those are going to be Xol and Nokris, and in this video what I want to do is kind of recap everything we know about Xol and Nokris, and generally what you should know about these two very important figures going into the DLC. I'm going to try to be pretty succinct with this summary just so this isn't a 20-minute long video. If you guys do want more information about the Hive and different systems within their society, I would definitely recommend reading things like the Books of Sorrow. With that out of the way, let's just go ahead and get into it. Now, the first thing that we have to do to understand who Xol is that we have to understand how the Hive's hierarchy system works. The Hive have a very similar system to the monarchies throughout human history. Essentially, everyone has a boss, and that boss has a boss, and that boss has a higher boss, and so on and so forth until you reach the king. Everyone answers to someone until you get to the king, and they pretty much do whatever the heck they want. So as far as we know, in the Destiny universe, the darkness is essentially the equivalent of that king. It does whatever the heck it wants, it answers to nobody, and essentially it sets its own agenda. Directly underneath the darkness are 5 worm gods of the Hive, and they are Akka, Ir, Yul, and finally the one that we are concerned with, Xol. So Xol is extremely powerful. He is part of the second highest tier of the Hive that we know of, and these worm gods are known to be some of the worst enemies of the Traveler. Now, the Hive worm gods were originally trapped underneath the surface of the Hive's homeworld fundament. They were described to have been kept there by a Leviathan who also presided underneath the surface. Now, that might be a little bit confusing because we have a couple other instances of the word Leviathan being used in the Destiny universe. This Leviathan is, as far as we know, completely separate from the Leviathans of the Cabal homeworld. As far as we know, that is a completely unrelated species. So in the Book of Sorrows, it describes that Oryx and his sisters met with the Hive worm gods and then became the species of the Hive that we know today. They ingested the worms, they began killing things, they were sort of corrupted per se, and throughout this process became the species that we know as the Hive. Once this happened, the Leviathan was eventually killed, and with him out of the way, the worm gods were essentially set free. They could do whatever the heck they wanted. That was until Oryx learned that he was actually stronger than the worm gods. Throughout time of eating and growing his worm, he actually grew so powerful that he was now more powerful than his own god. So with that, he rose up and he slayed one of the worm gods, Akka. He took Akka's power and he became even stronger. Because of this, the worm gods started to be very worried. They had called life from the fundament. They had protected it from extinction, and they had made that life so powerful that it was now fighting back. They found that they were not anymore immune to death. And in order to prevent himself from dying, Yul actually suggested that they take the weakest worm god and sacrifice them to make all of the other worm gods stronger. Xol was the weakest worm god, the one that Yul and the other worm gods would eventually turn against if the need arose. So because of this, Xol ended up leaving the other worm gods. He decided to continue by approaching the forgotten son of Oryx, who is going to be Nokris. And to Nokris, he proposed a deal. Xol would give Nokris a portion of his own power if Nokris would go and slay enemies to feed Xol and make him more powerful. Now in the new DLC, it seems like Nokris will be the focal point of a brand new strike called Strange Terrain. In addition to this, according to the DLC breakdown, it also turns out that he is in charge of the brand new faction of Hive, which are referred to as the Grasp of Nokris, and will all serve Xol. So in this new strike, once again called Strange Terrain, we must, quote, descend deep into the tunnels under Hellas Basin and take the fight to the Herald of Xol. Stop this Hive Prince before he can funnel more power to the worm god. So it does appear that Nokris directly works for Xol, and that his main objective in this DLC is to make Xol more powerful so he can regain his strength from the time he was frozen underneath the polar ice cap of Mars, essentially making him a huge threat. So I'm predicting in the campaign, the strike will be integrated just like it was with the Curse of Osiris. We will go and we will kill Nokris towards the end of the campaign, and then in the very end, we will either kill or badly injure Xol, where we may or may not finish him off in the Ray of the Lair. So that is essentially everything that we know about these very important individuals going into the Warmind DLC. Xol is one of the 4 remaining Hive Hive Worm gods. He is by far the weakest out of them, and because of that, he left the association of the other Hive gods, made a pact with Nokris, and because of that, they both are going to pose a huge threat. Either way, it looks like these two individuals are going to be the main antagonists that we are going to have to defeat within the Warmind DLC in just over a week. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating and to share it with your friends. If you are interested in watching either of the two videos on screen, you can click their respective invitations to be taken to them. If you're brand new to my channel, make sure to hit the giant version of my logo on screen to be subscribed for more awesome Destiny 2 videos and live streams. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will see you in the next video.